I now ask Professor Moore to take over, please. Thank you.
I'm going to be very brief. You've all been very patient. I'm really going to talk about institutional issues, since my colleagues have picked the eyes out of the good points. How many of you remember the 1994 ACT Future Water Supply Strategy? Did any of you participate in that? Yeah, some of you did. That, I think, was the last time that ACTU really went to the people of the region to find out what they wanted in terms of water supply. And it was driven by the fact that they had predicted in 1993 that if there was a drought in 2007, Canberra's water supply would fail, in fact. That's interesting, isn't it? And they went to the people, and it was a very professional job, and there were some very interesting things that came out of it. When they looked at the results, they found that 78% of the people who were surveyed wanted to delay the construction of a new dam as long as possible. 88% were happy to accept water restrictions during drought as a means of delaying the construction of a new dam. 92% felt that water pricing should contain a water conservation message. 88% wanted water pricing to reflect all financial and environmental costs. This was really a landmark survey in Australia. And what was also interesting was that people were happy to use recycled water for irrigation. And ACT, in fact, has been a pioneer in Australia in the use of irrigated water for recycled effluent for irrigation. The playing fields at Duntroon have been irrigated since the mid-70s. Southwell Park, there was a very innovative sewer mining system that takes water straight out of the sewer main and treats it for irrigation. Very, very innovative. But people were adamant that they didn't want to drink recycled effluent. And I think that survey, if it were done today, would still show very similar results. What ACTU did with that survey was to turn it into a 50-year plan for water supply for the ACT. There are 137 tasks that were identified, and they took this strategy back to the people that had done the survey. So it was very, very well done. There was an ongoing commitment in it for community consultation, reporting and modification of the strategy. So what caused the abandonment of this strategy? Well, water became a commodity in the ACT, and we set up a semi-privatised system. ACTU became corporatised, and the government got a good earner in terms of water. And that changed the whole nature of the way we manage water in the ACT. So things were abandoned. For example, we used to monitor groundwater throughout the ACT. As soon as ACTU realised there were no commercial customers for groundwater, they abandoned monitoring of groundwater. Quite remarkable. Another thing, of course, that happened, all these people who wanted to delay construction of a new dam, as my colleagues have said, the imposition of environmental flows. Calculations both within ACTU and outside ACTU show that this has decreased, the environmental flows have decreased the resilience of our water supply dams. No question about it. And it's somewhat ironic that the imposition of environmental flows means that we really need a new dam in the ACT. It was interesting that last Friday on ABC Radio, the Chief Minister said that environmental flows were imposed on us by the Commonwealth. Let me emphasise, the flows that we are having in the environmental flows in the ACT are ACT imposed environmental flows. There is no question about it. Just in terms of institutional things, you can see that we have a plethora of very strange propositions coming up for the supply of water. And not only do we have recycled effluent into our drinking system, but even talk of studying bringing water from desalinated water from the south coast. I'm quite surprised they haven't yet talked about towing icebergs. Now, one of the things that's interesting about this, where are these ideas being generated from? They are being generated from Actua AGL, which is the contracted supplier. They're not being generated by the Water Authority. The Water Authority was set up as a holding company, originally with a very small token staff of 5 people. The ideas, the resources, the skills all lie with the commercial supplier. I don't think that's right. The commercial supplier's main priority is to satisfy its shareholders. Whatever they say, that's what it is. And if the board aren't satisfying their shareholders, they're not doing their job. In my view, what the ACT needs is an independent water authority to plan, to monitor and to regulate water. Our regulators, in this semi-privatised system we have, we are really dependent on the regulators for regulating the environment, the health and the price. Our regulators are all under-resourced. And as already been said, we pay a large amount of money for the environmental abstraction charge. This money could easily go to resourcing adequately a water authority. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. As you can see, we've got a lot of questions and we are running a little late. So, and some of the pieces of paper actually aren't questions, they're statements. So I'll use the chairman's authority and choose among the questions we can put to the panel. Some I will amalgamate when the questions actually address the same sort of topic. So I'd like to begin with one which actually comes from Terry Kiernan, and he's asking, saying that the recent water-to-water forums, Actus couldn't guarantee that they could remove endocrine disruptors from their treated sewage. As a person of Indigenous descent, there are cultural issues associated with drinking water containing endocrine disruptors such as female birth control hormones. His question therefore is, why do we need to endanger our health when there is a cheaper alternative? There's also a question that asks, what about blood products, chemo and radiation products and other hospital waste that goes down our drains? I'd ask Peter to address that sort of question for you, please. You want?
I mean, I think a lot of there are real problems with estrogens and drugs like that, particularly the manufactured ones, because they're designed to be very stable and not break down. So, if you like, the pharmaceutical industry ones are much worse than the natural ones. Having said that, I mean, if this system works properly, the vast majority of these drugs should be removed. I mean, even if we assume they're 95, 99% effective, I think that will mean they'll be removed. There is an issue what you do with the waste product, I might say. If you actually put this through reverse osmosis, there's 10 or 20% of the water that contains all these products that you've then got to safely dispose of. So I think that's not an issue if it works properly. Which I think was the first part of the question. What was the second part of the question? Yeah, I think so I think actually drugs can be handled by the system if it's done properly and if it doesn't break down at times, but yeah, that's another issue. The other issue about what we do with all those waste products, I mean, what has been very obvious around the world, Singapore being a good example, everybody who recycles sewage into drinking water specifically excludes industrial areas, hospitals, and any other sources that might have those sort of materials in them. Because people are not sure, first of all, what it might do to the membranes, and secondly, what's in it. And that is another problem with the proposal here, is that there's no way in Canberra of separating domestic sewage, which is good quality sewage, from industrial places. So, and it is because of worries about what might come through and is not known. So I think that is another part of this proposal that seriously has to be readdressed, because I don't believe anybody else in the world does that, mixes them all together and uses it into their potable water, even indirectly if they can avoid it.
Thank you, Peter.